It was called Unsinkable. Yet in less than 3 hours, it was gone to a ship of dreams, carrying over 2,200 souls, met a silent killer drifting in the night. One mistake, one iceberg, and history was changed forever. This is not just the story of a ship. It is the story of human pride versus the unforgiving sea. The Titanic story begins long before its tragic encounter with the iceberg, in an age when the world believed nothing was beyond human achievement. It was the early 20th century, and industrialization had transformed society. Steam engines powered mighty ships across the oceans, trains linked distant cities, and electricity illuminated homes. In this climate of confidence, the White Star Line envisioned a vessel that would surpass anything the world had ever seen. The RMS Titanic was not simply built to cross the Atlantic. It was created to symbolize power, wealth, and modernity. Construction began in Belfast, Ireland at the Harland and Wolff shipyard, where thousands of workers labored for over 2 years to bring the ship to life. At 882 feet in length, with a gross tonnage exceeding 46,000 tons, Titanic was the largest moving object on Earth at the time. Her interiors were designed to rival the most luxurious hotels, with grand staircases, Turkish baths, reading rooms, and even a swimming pool. Yet while first-class passengers basked in opulence, third-class passengers, often poor immigrants seeking new lives in America, were given small cabins. Still, even these were considered better than the conditions on many other ships of the day. When Titanic set sail from Southampton on April 10, 1912, carrying more than 2,200 people, the world watched with admiration. Newspapers called her unsinkable, and passengers felt reassured by her design, which included watertight compartments and remotely operated doors. What few realized was that these safety measures had limits. The ship carried lifeboats for barely half the people on board, because regulations of the time required only a fraction of her capacity. It was a dangerous oversight hidden beneath the glow of luxury and pride. As Titanic steamed across the Atlantic, her passengers celebrated. But in the frozen north, nature was waiting patiently. Icebergs, carried southward by powerful currents, drifted silently in the ship's path. One of them, a mountain of ice broken from a Greenland glacier, stood immovable against the ocean waves. Titanic's destiny was sealed long before the lookouts spotted its ghostly shape that April night. The Titanic's voyage was a blend of dreams, ambitions, and contrasts. On board were some of the richest people in the world, business magnates, aristocrats, and celebrities, who traveled in unrivaled luxury. They dined on 10-course meals, danced in elegant salons, and strolled along promenades lined with polished wood and crystal windows. Among them was John Jacob Astor IV, one of the wealthiest men alive, and Isidore Straus, co-owner of Macy's department store. But below decks, in third-class cabins, the atmosphere was different. Families from Ireland, Scandinavia, and Eastern Europe huddled together, filled with hope for a better life in America. Titanic was not just a ship. It was a vessel of human stories, carrying dreams across the sea. This contrast reflected the world at the time, a society divided sharply between wealth and poverty, privilege and struggle. Yet, for all the differences, everyone shared one thing in common: the belief that they were traveling on the safest ship ever built. Captain Edward Smith, a respected seaman nearing retirement, commanded Titanic with calm confidence. The weather was clear, the sea calm, and the atmosphere festive. Wireless operators tapped out messages to and from passengers, sending greetings across the Atlantic. Ice warnings arrived from nearby ships, but these were treated with routine caution rather than alarm. After all, Titanic was thought to be invincible. The iceberg zone was known, but the ship pressed on at nearly full speed. That decision would prove fatal. On April 14, 1912, as night fell, the sea became eerily still. The air grew colder, and stars shone brilliantly in the dark sky. In the crow's nest, lookouts Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee scanned the horizon. At 11:40 p.m., Fleet spotted a dark shape directly ahead, an iceberg looming in the path. He rang the bell 3 times and shouted, "Iceberg, right ahead." First Officer William Murdoch ordered a sharp turn, and engines reversed. The ship responded, but too late. With a shuddering scrape, the iceberg's jagged edges tore into Titanic's starboard side, opening a series of gashes below the waterline. Passengers barely felt the impact, but deep within the ship, seawater rushed in at an unstoppable pace. The unsinkable ship had met its match in a silent block of ice that cared nothing for human pride. The moment of collision was deceptively quiet. Many passengers in first class hardly noticed, dismissing it as a minor jolt. Some felt a faint vibration, like a train shifting on its tracks. In third class, however, the sound of tearing metal was more distinct. Stewards reassured travelers that nothing was wrong, but down in the mailroom, Postal workers already fought against rising water, trying desperately to save bags of letters and parcels. Titanic's design, while advanced, could not withstand the damage. The iceberg had ripped open 6 watertight compartments, and the ship was only designed to survive 4 flooding at once. As Captain Smith assessed the situation with shipbuilder Thomas Andrews, the grim reality became clear. Titanic was doomed. Andrews, who knew the ship's design better than anyone, estimated she had less than 3 hours before sinking. Shock spread among the officers. The wireless operators, Jack Phillips and Harold Bride, were instructed to send distress calls. CQD, CQD, come at once. Titanic's sinking. Later they added the newly adopted signal SOS, one of the first times it was ever used. Meanwhile, passengers carried on with their evening, unaware of the unfolding disaster. In the luxurious dining saloons, coffee was still being served. In the smoking rooms, gentlemen discussed politics and finance. But below decks, the crew scrambled to contain the flooding, closing doors and ordering pumps to run. The contrast between calm leisure above and chaos below was striking. Slowly, word spread that something was terribly wrong. When lifeboats were uncovered, many passengers were confused. Why leave a ship so grand, so solid, so well lit, for a small wooden craft on the dark, freezing sea? Convincing them was not easy. Officers urged people to don life jackets and head to the deck, but denial was strong. Titanic, the ship of dreams, could not possibly sink. And yet, minute by minute, the bow was slipping lower into the Atlantic, the tilt almost imperceptible but deadly in its progression. The iceberg had done its work with silent efficiency, leaving human beings to confront the unthinkable. As the realization of danger grew, the atmosphere aboard Titanic shifted from curiosity to unease. The crew began the process of loading lifeboats, though few passengers believed it necessary. Many laughed at the suggestion. Some refused outright, preferring to remain in the brightly lit warmth of the ship rather than risk the icy Atlantic. The officers struggled with enforcing the order of women and children first, a directive rooted in maritime tradition but difficult to execute in practice. Some men protested, while others gallantly stepped back. The lifeboats themselves presented another problem. There were only 20, enough for about 1,200 people, barely half of those on board. Worse, in the early stages of evacuation, many boats were lowered half-empty because passengers hesitated to leave. Lifeboat number 7, for example, with a capacity of 65, was launched with only 28 aboard. First-class passengers were prioritized, their cabins closest to the boat decks, while third-class passengers faced locked gates and confusing directions that delayed their escape. Panic spread as the ship's tilt grew more noticeable. The band, led by Wallace Hartley, played cheerful music to calm the crowd, filling the night air with familiar melodies. Some say their final song was the hymn, "Nearer, My God, to Thee," though survivors offered differing accounts. Regardless, the music became a haunting symbol of courage in the face of certain doom. Down below, engineers and firemen worked tirelessly to keep the ship's power running, ensuring the lights and wireless stayed active until the end. Their sacrifice meant that distress signals continued to reach nearby ships, though most were too far away. The Carpathia, 58 miles distant, set course immediately, but would not arrive until hours after Titanic slipped beneath the waves. Meanwhile, the Californian, only about 10 miles away, remained silent. Her wireless operator had gone to bed, and distress rockets were mistaken for mere signals of celebration. The iceberg had not only torn into steel, but had revealed flaws in human preparation, communication, and judgment. Paragraph 5, 800 words. As the night wore on, the scene on deck became increasingly desperate. The once proud ship was now angled downward, her bow sinking steadily as the stern lifted higher into the starry sky. Passengers who had earlier resisted boarding lifeboats now scrambled frantically for places, only to find most already gone. Shouts and cries filled the air, mingling with the groaning of the ship's structure as it strained under immense pressure. Captain Smith moved quietly among the decks, offering words of reassurance, but carrying the heavy knowledge that his ship was beyond saving. Thomas Andrews, the ship's designer, was last seen in the first-class smoking room, staring blankly at a painting as the water crept closer, a man overwhelmed by the failure of his great creation.